The complete work of Swami Vivekananda, Video 27, warn us against these powers. Again, in the very same meditation, when one struggles to take the elements out of time and space and think of them as they are, it is called nirvitarka, without question. When the meditation goes a step higher and takes the tanmatras as its object and thinks of them as in time and space, it is called savichara, with discrimination. And when in the same meditation one eliminates time and space and thinks of the fine elements as they are, it is called nirvichara, without discrimination. The next step is when the elements are given up, both good and fine, and the object of meditation is the interior organ, the thinking organ. When the thinking organ is thought of as bereft of the qualities of activity and dullness, it is then called sanananda, the blissful samadhi. When the mind itself is the object of meditation, when meditation becomes very ripe and concentrated, when all ideas of the gross and fine materials are given up, when the sattva state only of the ego remains, but differentiated from all other objects, it is called sasmita samadhi. The man who has attained to this has attained to what is called in the Vedas bereft of body. He can think of himself as without his gross body, but he will have to think of himself as with a fine body. Those that in this state get merged in nature without attaining the goal are called prakritilyas, but those who do not stop even there reach the goal, which is freedom. There is another samadhi which is attained by the constant practice of cessation of all mental activity, in which the chitta remains only the unmanifested impressions. This is the perfect superconscious asamprajanta samadhi, the state which gives us freedom. The first state doesn't give us freedom, doesn't liberate the soul. A man may attain to all powers and yet fall again. There is no safeguard until the soul goes beyond nature. It is very difficult to do so, although the method seems easy. The method is to meditate on the mind itself, and whenever thought comes, to strike it down, allowing no thought to come into the mind, thus making it an entire vacuum. When we can really do this, that very moment we shall attain liberation. When persons without training and preparation try to make their minds vacant, they are like to succeed only in covering themselves with tamas, the material of ignorance which makes the mind dull and stupid, and leads them to think that they are making a vacuum of the mind. To be able to do that is to manifest the greatest strength, the highest control. When this state, a saprajanta superconsciousness, is reached, the samadhi becomes seedless. What is meant by that? It is in a concentration where there is consciousness, where the mind succeeds only in quelling the waves in the chitta and holding them down. The waves remain in the form of tendencies. These tendencies or seed become waves again when the time comes. But when you have destroyed all these tendencies, almost destroyed the mind, then the samadhi becomes seedless. There are no more seeds in the mind out of which to manufacture again and again this plant of life, this ceaseless round of birth and death. You may ask, what state would that be in which there is no mind, there is no knowledge? What we call knowledge is a lower state than the one beyond knowledge. You must always bear in mind that the extremes look very much alike. If a very low vibration of ether is taken as darkness, an intermediate state as light, a very high vibration will be darkness again. Similarly, ignorance is the lowest state, knowledge is the middle state, and beyond knowledge is the highest state, the two extremes of which seem the same. Knowledge itself is a manufactured something, a combination. It is not reality. What is the result of constant practice of this higher concentration? All old tendencies of restlessness and dullness will be destroyed, as well as the tendencies of goodness too. The case is similar to that of the chemicals used to take the dirt and alloy of gold. When the ore is smelted down, the dross is burnt along with the chemicals. So this constant controlling power will stop the previous bad tendencies and eventually the good ones also. Those good and evil tendencies will suppress each other, leaving alone the soul in its own splendor, untrammeled by either good or bad, the omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient. Then the man will know that he had neither birth nor death, nor need for heaven or earth. He will know that he neither came nor went in, nor went. It was nature which was moving, and that movement was reflected upon the soul. The form of the light reflected by the glass upon the wall moves, and the wall foolishly thinks it is moving. So with all of us. It is the chitta constantly moving, making itself into various forms, and we think that we are these various forms. All these delusions will vanish when that free soul will command, not pray or beg, but command. Then whatever it desires will be immediately fulfilled. Whatever it wants, it will be able to do. According to the Sankhya philosophy, there is no God. It says that there can be no God of this universe, because if there were one, he must be a soul, and the soul must be either bound or freed. How can the soul that is bound by nature or controlled by nature create? It is itself a slave. On the other hand, why should the soul that is free create and manipulate all these things? It has no desires, so it cannot have any need to create. Secondly, it says the theory of God is an unnecessary one. Nature explains all. Why is the use of any God? But Kapila teaches that there are many souls who, though nearly attaining perfection, fall short because they cannot perfectly renounce all powers. Their minds for a time merge in nature to re-emerge as its masters. Such gods there are. We shall all become such gods, and according to the Sankhyas, the God spoken of in the Vedas really means one of these free souls. Beyond them, there is not an eternally free and blessed creator of the universe. On the other hand, the yogis say, not so, there is a God. There is one soul separate from all other souls, and he is the eternal master of all creation, the ever free, the teacher of all teachers. The yogis admit that those whom the Sankhyas call the merged in nature also exist. They are yogis who have fallen short of perfection, and though for a time debarred from attaining the goal, remains as rulers of parts of the universe. This samadhi, when not followed by extreme non-attachment, becomes the cause of the remanifestation of the gods and of those that become merged in nature. The gods in the Indian systems of philosophy represent certain high offices which are filled successively by various souls, but none of them is perfect. To others, this samadhi comes through faith, energy, memory, concentration, and discrimination of the real. These are they who do not want the position of gods or even that of rulers of cycles. They attain to liberations. Energetic. Success is speedy for the extremely energetic. The success of yogis differs according as the means they adopt are mild, medium, or intense, or by devotion to Ishvara. Ishvara, the supreme ruler, is a special Purusa, untouched by mystery, actions, their results and desires. We must again remember that the Patanjali Yoga philosophy is based upon the Sankhya philosophy. Only in the latter there is no place for God, while with the yogis God has a place. The yogis, however, do not mention many ideas about God, such as creating. God as the creator of the universe is not meant by the Ishvara of the yogis. According to the Vedas, Each is the creator of the universe. Because it is harmonious, it must be the manifestation of one will. The yogis want to establish a God, but they arrive at him in a peculiar fashion of their own. They say, Him becomes infinite that all-knowingness which in others is only a germ. The mind must always travel between two extremes. You can think of limited space, but that very idea gives you also unlimited space. Close your eyes and think of a little space. At the same time that you perceive the little circle, you have a circle round it of unlimited dimension. It is the same with time. Try to think of a second. You will have, with the same act of perception, to think of time which is unlimited. So, with knowledge, knowledge is only a germ in man, but you will have to think of infinite knowledge around it, so that the very constitution of our mind shows us that there is unlimited knowledge, and the yogis call that unlimited knowledge God. He is the teacher of even the ancient teachers, being not limited by time. It is true that all knowledge is within ourselves, but this has to be called forth by another knowledge. Although the capacity to know is inside us, it must be called out, and that calling out of knowledge call only be done. A yogi maintains through another knowledge. Dead, insentient matter never calls out knowledge. It is the action of knowledge that brings out knowledge. Knowing being must be with us to call forth what is in us. So these teachers were always necessary. The world was never without them, and no knowledge can come without them. God is the teacher of all teachers, because these teachers, however great they may have been, gods or angels, were all bound and limited by time, while God is not. There are two peculiar deductions of the yogis. The first is that in thinking of the limited, the mind must think of the unlimited, and that if one part of that perception is true, so also must the other be, for the reason that their value as perceptions of the mind is equal. The very fact that man has a little knowledge shows that God has unlimited knowledge. I am to take a one, why not the other? Reason forces me to take both or reject both. If I believe that there is a man with a little knowledge, I must also admit that there is someone behind him with unlimited knowledge. The second deduction is that no knowledge can come without a teacher. It is true, as the modern philosophers say, that there is something in man which evolves out of him. All knowledge is in man, but certain environments are necessary to call it out. We cannot find any knowledge without teachers. If there are man teachers, God teachers, or angel teachers, they are all limited. Who was the teacher before them? We are forced to admit as a last conclusion one teacher who is not limited by time, and that one teacher of infinite knowledge without beginning or end is called God. His manifesting word is Om. Every idea that you have in the mind has a counterpart in a word. The word and the thought are inseparable. The external part of one and the same thing is what we call a word, and the internal part is what we call thought. No man can, by analysis, separate thought from word. The idea that language was created by man, certain men sitting together and deciding upon